Welcome to Decentralized News, where you can tune in for crypto updates. We'll cover a number of exciting topics, including the U.S. banking meltdown, macro news, crypto adoption, and chain news. This is not financial advice. Please do your own research. Let's get right into it. How you doing today, Ozzy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Piter?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. It's a beautiful Monday over here. But over the weekend, not so beautiful. Kind of some banking scares going on. We have the bank body count adding up. We started with Silvergate, then we got Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Well,
Credit
it's credit,
Suisse?
and then is First Republic next. Yeah, that's what's been going on. As far as an update with Signature Bank, Reuters reports buyers must give up crypto business at the time, and that the FDIC spokesman denied this, noting that the agency did not require crypto divestment as part of the sale. But then there was a takeover deal from Flagstar Bank, and it did not include approximately $4 billion of deposits held by Signature Bank's digital assets business. Instead, the FDIC confirmed that it would transfer these deposits directly to customers who open a digital banking account. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't realize that they hadn't taken the digital asset part of the business over. So that's an interesting detail and kind of goes with the theory that you've been sharing and a lot of people have been sharing about Choke Point 2.0. That's a big move.
Yeah, it's a little plus minus with it. I mean, there are less banks because of the choke point, but there are crypto companies like Coinbase, Paxos, Celsius that had exposure and they should receive their funds now. So that's good for investors in the long or in the
Ye-
short term.
Yeah, it should be good on the short term. And it is forcing crypto companies are creating their own banks. We've seen that with Kraken's been talking about it. Justin Sun of Huobi has also been talking about helping fund the creation of a new bank, a new crypto bank. So interesting discussions of moves by crypto companies as a whole.
Yeah, it got pretty heated. There was a Signature Bank board member, Barney Frank, uh, of, was it the Todd Frank bill fame, accused the regulatory agency of shutting down just to send a very strong send a very strong anti-crypto message. And the regulators just to give the count, what they said is that they were shut down for failing to provide consistent and reliable data. So that's why they shut them. That's why they claim to shut them down.
Interesting how two different people have two sides of a story. Wonder if it's maybe somewhere in between. It feels like they aren't used to crypto report. The banking system isn't used to crypto reporting, so maybe there's some different kind of considerations that they don't understand, and so it makes it seem inconsistent and unreliable.
Yeah. There's some other political action. Congressman Tom Emmer took a stance on this and officially wrote a letter to the FDIC claiming that they're weaponizing the system.
That's interesting to see congressmen also come out against the actions of the New York state regulators and other bank regulators.
Yeah. It's been interesting watching the Signature Bank fiasco kind of unfold, that particular bank, just because of its connection to crypto
Yeah,
and
I mean,
government regulations.
SVB, so Silicon Valley Bank also sold for a £1. Their UK arm, so not
Right.
the US arm or anything like that, but the UK arm was acquired by HSBC for £1, which is pretty laughable. Hey, you can
Yeah.
buy my entire bank for $1.
And it seems like the other aspects of the bank they're having trouble selling too because the FDIC extended the deadline for bidding. It was supposed to close on Friday. So I guess it just shows the complexity of it. I guess this is the US portion of it or a different portion of the bank.
I think it's mainly the US portion. The US was the biggest sector of business in the first place, so I think it's mainly the US portion and all of their investments and everything.
I guess they're going to divide it into two parts and sell the business and try to make it easier.
Exactly.
The other big news over the weekend was what happened with Credit Suisse. This is over in Switzerland,
Yeah.
and they were sold to the other major bank in Switzerland. And I guess if that deal didn't go through, they were talking about nationalizing the bank.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard about them trying to nationalize the bank. That's a
But they
whole
weren't going to
different move.
stop. They were going to try to make moves to save it one way or the other. But this deal seemed to have gone through, kind of potentially averting a banking crisis.
Yeah, it is still not great news for employees in the banking sector because these two banks that are merging currently employ about 11,000 people between them in the UK. And given that they're going to be merging operations, likely they could see some significant cuts in their job force there.
Yeah. And it doesn't seal the deal that contagion is contained, so to speak. And there was news at a First Republic Bank. It seems a bit on the chopping block lately. On as recently as Monday, March 6th, the stock was trading at over $120, and today is under 20. And just this Sunday, the S&P downgraded the credit rating to B plus from BB plus. Part of the concern is the number of large depositors that are not insured over 250. They have about 70% of deposits that are uninsured. So they've seen large outflows to larger institutions, and they're under a lot of pressure. Money.
Yeah, and with that, we've seen a pretty big coordinated effort major banks in the US to increase US dollar liquidity using swap lines, basically helping the bank obtain currency, the central bank, and get it to other banks within the country. So it's that's pretty major.
Yeah, we're seeing these big institutions make moves to calm fears. It seems like they're taking act.
Yeah, I think everyone is worried and can see the potential impacts of what a major bank collapse in the US would be. We have seen banks collapse in the US, but they don't want another 2008 or even worse.
So we've got bank collapse in the U.S. Then we have Credit Suisse in Europe. That changed some big names stuff. Bank of Canada, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, Federal Reserve, Swiss National Bank. These swap lines are there to assist the central bank in obtaining foreign currency from central banks that issue it, and in turn distribute it to banks in the country. It's an important, in the press release, they said it's an important liquidity backstop, and that these operations are going to start Monday. So start immediately and go through the end of April. So trying to reassure the markets is how that sounds to me.
Oh, very much. It very much is. Let's reassure the markets. The markets are weak and we want the market and the economy to stay strong. They realize that they broke something this time. With that being said, the subscribe button isn't broken, so don't forget to hit it while you watch our video and subscribe to our channel if you like the content. Thank you, guys.
While this is going on, we're of course always watching the Bitcoin price here. It's been trading over the weekend in the $27,000 range to the 28.5. Since Friday, it's currently at about 28,000 at the time of recording. And exciting news, we have Fed meeting coming up this Wednesday.
Yeah, the Fed meeting is going to be major. We've been doing interest rate watch for the last 3 weeks now, watching as it bounces from 25 basis points to 50 basis points, back to 25 basis points, maybe 0 now. It's absolutely nuts. No one really feels like the market has no clue what's going to happen on Wednesday.
Yeah, it seems like Jerome Powell was flexing 0.5 was possible. So seeing him come all the way down to 0, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, he was really highly touting 50 basis points in his testimony to Congress 2 weeks ago. And now sentiment has more or less shifted to 75% of people are assuming we're going to see a 25 basis point hike. It's moved around a lot in the last week, with at one point hitting over 35, almost 40%, expecting no hike, but it's downgraded significantly in the last 24 hours. That's something interesting to note as well.
When I was looking at the FedWatch tool, the way I was reading it seems like it's going to be 25 over the next two, and most likely going to be 25 in the first one, and then, but just like by slim margins.
It doesn't really seem. It really seems like a lot of people are pricing that this is the last one. Some
Right.
people are even having the goal of saying they're gonna pull it back. 40% of people are assuming we'll see a pullback in the May in interest rates.
Yeah, that would be surprising and would certainly bring some volatility to the markets. That's for sure.
There's more and more expectations that we're going to be seeing rate pullbacks as soon as June or July. It's hard to say, but it definitely is looking in that direction. Current rates are between 4.5 and 4.75%, and most people are expecting we get to 4.75 and 505%. And then we're starting to see expectations. We might hold rates through June, but start seeing rates come down almost certainly in July right now, with only almost 7% of forecasters estimating that the rates will stay the same all the way till July. So 93% are assuming that we pull back in July. So
One of the interesting things about the turn of events recently is it's a lot harder to imagine Jerome Powell and the Fed being able to put pressure on interest rates where they can get inflation down to 2%. It just seems like a lot harder to imagine that if they're already expecting to pivot fairly soon.
data is also suggesting that it might already be working. CPI came in last Tuesday, so it's about a week old now, but it came in at 6%, which is down from 6.4 last month. So that's still a decent drop. Are we at 2%? No, but we are headed in the right direction. Core CPI came down from
Yeah.
5.6 to 5.5, which
Well,
isn't as great as everyone was expecting, but there's a lot of more lagging indicators in that part of CPI.
yeah, and that's one to watch because that one really barely moved because it was rounded up when it was at 5.5 and I'm sorry, 5.55, and it was rounded down this month. It was at 5.53. So it really moved very little. It's been very sticky.
Yeah, it has been pretty sticky. There's certain services that kind of prices went up still last month. There's certain things like pet supplies who were still slowly increasing prices based off of inflation for the first quarter of 2022, and so that helped keep that category a little bit higher. We also saw increase in prices for financial services. Think about people filing their taxes. Um, so that was another thing that helped keep that number a little bit higher than one would expect. So hopefully it will keep going down, but the trajectory is right.
Fair enough. All right, we can move on into some more regulation government news. This is an interesting story. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, in a speech, calls for a ban on CBDCs. See that story?
I've seen that story, and he's been really touting this bill, this kind of action. He's talking about a bill that would ban the use of any federally backed CBDC in the state. So this is a move that follows another move within Congress. They don't want CBDCs under government control, which is very interesting from
Right.
government
There are,
officials.
there are people within the government, it seems particularly on the Republican side, that do not want this. And for those that don't know who Ron DeSantis is, he's the governor of Florida. He's a very popular GOP governor and probably the only potential candidate besides Trump being considered by the GOP to seriously contend with Biden in a presidential campaign.
Exactly. He's got quite the stance, and his stance is, I don't want to say opposite to Biden's. We don't fully know where he stands fully with crypto as a whole. Where Biden's talked about taxing and going after cryptocurrency, DeSantis is talking about pushing back against CBDCs and government overreach and privacy. His big statement is with the see there would be no privacy, and if there was no privacy, there are no rights. This was from the state CFO Jimmy Petronas, but it follows along what was being discussed by DeSantis. So
Yeah, the fear of government surveillance control is prominent, I think, for him.
exactly. He's not the only government official that's been making a lot of comments lately. Gary Gensler, our good old friend Gary Gensler, is still talking about how proof of stake cryptocurrencies could be securities. He's made the same suggestion several times now, despite CFTC Chair Rostin Benham's own stance that Ethereum specifically, which is probably the biggest proof of stake crypto at the moment, is a commodity. So it's interesting.
Yeah, this was one of the strongest arguments to me about Ethereum, not security, which I tend to generally think it is. But then when you hear the CFTC saying, look, we would be in big trouble if we didn't have legal justification for saying, no, this is a commodity and for registering it for futures contracts. So that's a pretty strong argument in my.
I don't share your belief that Ethereum would be considered a security. I do think there's like other cryptos that could be, but to me, Ethereum is at this point like it's like a currency in some ways. It's a
Yeah, but I think
good.
the argument that makes Gensler's argument stronger is just, it's not so much what it is now and how it's being used, it's how, when it was initially offered and how that went.
I would disagree. I think you could say maybe it's maybe you can say its initial sales were security were the sale of unregistered securities, but I would say that now you couldn't I wouldn't stand for the argument that it would be considered a security at this point in time.
Well, just to give Gensler's quotes and what he thinks, the investing public, quote, the investing public is investing and anticipating a return, anticipating something on these tokens, whether they're proof of stake tokens, where they're also looking to get returns on these proof of stake tokens, getting 2, 4, 18% returns. Whatever they're promoting or putting into a protocol, locking up their tokens in a protocol that's often a small group of entrepreneurs and developers are developing. I would just suggest that each of these token operators seek to come into compliance, and the same with all the intermediaries. So yeah, it's interesting. Is come in and comply, but they
I'm
seem
gonna
so,
fine you.
yeah, they seem, yeah. Anyway, that always bothers me when he says, when I hear that, people who want to come in the front door seem to be having all the trouble in the world. And we are saying like, "Oh, just come on in. You know what I mean? Tell us everything. Everything will be fine."
Yeah. Gary's confusion and the confusing actions of many other people within the US government has made Coinbase consider setting up non-US trading platforms. After the collapse of FTX and the shutdown of 3 crypto-friendly banks, they're looking at moving overseas. This is something that's been really discussed about how all these moves by the US government could be pushing innovation and pushing crypto overseas, and it seems to be doing that.
Yeah, no, Coinbase the CEO seemed to have been upset from the beginning about a lot of this regulation, and how unclear it is. And yeah, he's putting his vote with your feet, as they say. Take our business elsewhere if that's what it takes. But they're not giving up, that's for sure. The former CTO, this is an interesting little story on Twitter a lot over the weekend, makes a $2 million bet on Bitcoin's performance. He did two $1 million bets. That Bitcoin will go to $1 million in 90 days. And the thing he cites that would make it possible, no one would wish for. We're talking some bad things happening for this to get to $1 million within 90 days. And the idea of it happening seems highly unlikely, but he does seem to want to highlight issues in the banking system, and that Bitcoin is an opportunity to get outside the system that has systemic problems. He's basically, this system has systemic problems. This is an option outside of it. So I thought it was an interesting story, all told, the whole drama.
Yeah,
It's other-
very interesting. $1 million in 90 days. Good lord. I'm assuming this guy has stupid money to burn. He must have made a lot on stock options when they went IPO'd.
Supposedly he has like 1,000 Bitcoins. I think do your research on that one. I think I heard something like that. Like it's not a big deal. Bitcoin would have to go up 4% for him to make it back. Something like that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like the kind of things that would have to happen eerily, it's, oh, there has to be World War III potentially. And you have the Chinese leader going to Russia right now. And then it was like, oh, civil war in the United States. Then you have Trump maybe being arrested. And then it's like banking crisis has to melt down and you have banks shutting down. You know what I mean? So it's, oh, you know what I mean?
There's too many bad things that have to happen for Bitcoin
Right.
to go to 1 million. And I wouldn't want all of those bad things to happen because at that point, what does Bitcoin matter if the world is literally collapsing?
Fire. Yeah. So yeah, I don't even think he would hope that happens. So it's interesting to see him make this bet. And what is his purpose? What is the purpose of it? But yeah, in other, it's an adoption story. It's bringing a lot of attention to the space, the bet anyway. So interesting in that regards, at the very least. What's the saying? Any news is good news.
I would take the bet so that I could get his $1 million so that I could buy all those Bitcoin that he will have to sell.
Put it up. It's a bet. You gotta. Oh, that's a lot of jack.
That is a lot of that's a lot of dough.
Oof, man. Anyway, in continuing with kind of adoption stories, I found this one particularly interesting. A Catholic church in Washington now accepts crypto. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. has announced intentions to expand its ministry and support 139 parishes and regional initiatives for the needy by accepting crypto donations. They're going to be accepted through a company called Given, which I never heard of. It's an enterprise donation platform that uses blockchain to assist nonprofit for cryptocurrency donations to further their cause. The platform has already enabled crypto donations for 400 faith-based groups, including a $10 million Bitcoin donation, one of the largest single BTC donations in history. Also interesting to note, the Vatican has not issued clear guidance on the matter, nor have they officially acknowledged using cryptocurrencies. But I just thought this was a really interesting adoption story, considering there are currently an estimated 1.2 billion Catholics worldwide.
Okay, I've got a very important point here.
There you go.
Imagine the Vatican acknowledges and accepts cryptocurrencies before the US government figures out how to get their head out of their butt.
Know what else I was thinking about with this story? And funny you bring that up is because then what does that mean for like freedom of religion and the use of Bitcoin? Does that protect, is it my religious right to use Bitcoin?
God.
Did you see this Fidelity story?
Yeah, Fidelity finally going live with their crypto platform. Millions and millions of retail customers no longer have to understand how to use blockchain or decide whether or not they trust Coinbase or FTX or some other crypto exchange. They can go to where they already buy all their good old stocks in their Roth IRA or their 401k with Fidelity.
All right. They can, if they trust Fidelity, because it's, as of now, it's not self-custody. So you can't withdraw you can't buy it there and then take your Bitcoin out as of yet. Anyway, maybe it'll come someday, but you do have to trust Fidelity, but it does expose a lot of retail investors.
35 million retail accounts, 3 trillion under management. So
Not sure what percentage of that is retail investors, and it's not available in all states. I do need to go check it out. I live in a horrible state. They're the worst. So I imagine it's not available to me because I do have a Fidelity account. And it just opened today. I gotta go ahead and check it out.
yeah, but they're doing it on a rolling basis to make sure they don't crash the platform and ensure liquidity, but it's being rolled out, and so that's massive. $3 trillion is basically equivalent to the market cap of crypto at the height of the bull run.
And they're doing this in a rough week, but maybe the reason why they rolled it up quietly, but it has not been a particularly good week as far as banking and cryptos.
Yeah, that's for sure. Other news, our favorite little country, continues to push its Bitcoin agenda. El Salvador launching the Cubo Plus Bitcoin educational program. So that's pretty awesome. They announced their new 6-month educational program entitled Cubo Plus that aims to produce elite level Bitcoin and Lightning Network developers through the El Salvadoran university system. So that's pretty cool. Great way to empower their population and help power the Bitcoin and crypto landscape.
Yeah, this is cool to see because it's really giving El Salvador the benefit of kind of being a first mover. So this is all private funding responsible for the program and just the attention they've attracted to themselves. And it's going to benefit 25 of the best, young, brightest students in El Salvador at first. So I think it's pretty cool. It's the inaugural Plan B Fellowship and it's funded by Tether and Fulgur Ventures, but the students will receive a stipend in order to cover the cost of the course. So I thought that was pretty cool too. And it was the project result of a recently announced agreement also between El Salvador and Lugano, Switzerland, and the world's first Bitcoin embassy. So it's also a product of this first Bitcoin embassy. And there was a second one in Texas now. So
The one in Texas hasn't been fully established yet, working on it.
cool. Texas is a very Bitcoin friendly state. I can see myself moving there one day.
You would totally fit in there.
I don't know about that, but I'm comfortable holding it. And that's part of being in Texas.
Fine.
But maybe I can get there. I don't know.
I feel I could totally see you holding a gun and saying, "You're not taking my coins.
Yeah.
Stay away from my Satoshis."
I'm so naturally not violent. I really hope I'm never in a position where that sounds like a good idea. And I feel like I have to fight that hard.
I'm
It's not
joking.
my dream scenario.
All right, we should probably move on a little bit more. Soft is reportedly testing a Web3 wallet integration for Edge. So,
Yeah, this is not any kind of official announcement, just FYI. It's just leaked developer stuff. But go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's not official, but Albacore, who's the occasional info leaker, has shared a bunch of screenshots showing early stages of the new Web3 wallet. I feel like Web3 wallets, they're already becoming a play for a lot of companies and projects in the DeFi space. So it'll be interesting to see. It will be non-custodial, so Microsoft won't have access to passwords and recovery keys. I totally misread that. And so,
More like a hot wallet, like MetaMask.
yeah. But the nice thing is they're saying it's going to be embedded in Edge rather than being a browser extension. So you don't have to worry about downloading the wrong MetaMask.
It seems like not hard to imagine in the very near future. Anytime you're getting your update from your browser, it's like new feature embedded. It's not that hard to imagine. Like it'll be very common.
Yeah, I think it'll no longer be Connect Wallet. Like it'll just read your wallet because it's embedded in your browser. And then you do have to authorize the transactions, but
Yeah.
but there's no longer going to be the Connect Wallet button at the top of every screen on every dApp in Web3.
Yeah. It will just be on Web3.
Exactly.
Yeah, or right next to it. So. But there's some backwards movement too, in a quote unquote huge blow for NFTs. Facebook and Instagram take a step back. A senior executive revealed that Facebook and Instagram are winding down support for NFTs. So they had been rolling out this thing slowly with mixed reviews, but it was getting more and more where you could actually physically hold NFTs. At first, it was just put up a PFP, basically. That's all you could do with it. But they were slowly rolling out to small groups to mint, buy, sell NFTs and move them around, but they're going to wind down.
Yeah. Interesting. Facebook and Instagram, the people are pushing back against most of those platforms, so I don't feel like that's game changer. I feel like the more successful rollouts from Reddit and Starbucks are actually more game changing than Instagram or Facebook.
And some are struggling. Some of these bigger names that kind of seem to have established presence. Facebook, such a huge presence worldwide digitally, that they struggle in this new space. It's not necessarily easy for them just because they have this pre-existing business. Some have been successful and some are struggling with. And I think they'll come back. Maybe they need to reimagine everything.
Exactly. I think they need to maybe explore how it's best integrated and where the actual value is for the platform rather than just having an NFT to say you have NFTs.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, Meta's been struggling in general. So they announced this and layoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not surprising that Web3 is the most risque space in terms of investment for tech companies. And so I'm not surprised when layoffs happen. That's probably the first place where they look at layoffs.
But in terms of like market share and the kind of market share you need for such a big company like that, or opportunity, just growth in the market, you need to move big numbers on a company like that. It seems like Web3 is at least one avenue they'll need to explore.
Oh, absolutely. Don't think it's dead. I think they're just taking a step back, just like we talked about MasterCard and Visa.
Let the dust settle a little bit with regulation. But yeah, that doesn't seem to be clearing up anytime soon, does it?
No, Hong Kong seems to be making it clearer than the US is. If you look
Right.
at Hong Kong, they've just allowed the trading of major cryptocurrencies by retail investors. They're introducing new rules in June, so it's not officially released, but it'll allow crypto trading platforms to be licensed by their SEC, which is the SFC for them. And they're working on a consultation for the proposal right now. So that's pretty big.
Clarification, please.
It's huge clarification. And so that's incredible. And it also opens up a huge market to crypto that had been originally cut off.
Yeah, there part of this report, there are more than 80 foreign and mainland China crypto companies that are in line or express interest. I guess there are 23 that are active in the country already, establishing infrastructure and things like that physically in the country.
So looking at it, that's pretty great. Another pretty good thing that we're seeing is the Binance-Voyager deal seems to be finally going through. So Binance US was going to be acquiring Voyager and their assets for roughly $1 billion, despite multiple attempts from US and New York governments and regulators to halt this acquisition by Binance US. Judge Michael Wiles has basically said, no, you're not allowed to object to this deal. Your protractions that you're trying to make will harm the interest of Voyager's former clients who are awaiting the return of their funds. And also said the accusations are exaggerating and mischaracterizing. So that is massive.
Yeah, I don't know if they have any more plays, but yeah, the government accused the bankruptcy plan of immunizing fraud, theft, and tax avoidance. It was also demanding to remove the provision preventing U.S. authorities from legally pursuing anyone involved with the sale. So if someone were to the finance basically who's buying Voyager, that they could go after them for whatever Voyager did.
Yeah, interesting. But it's good to see the court and the judicial system standing up to potentially zealous regulators trying to get their fingers in the pudding.
As the founding fathers and the balance of powers still at work to this day.
Exactly.
We have some other big news, chain news. Shanghai Hard Fork on Ethereum network. They have the target date for this highly anticipated hard fork has been set Wednesday, April 12th. The Shanghai mainnet upgrade features 5 Ethereum improvement proposals including EIP 4985, which enables staked Ether withdrawals on the. This will complete Ethereum's transition from proof of work to proof of stake.
which is massive. The date, it's very funny because I got the timing right on when this deal was going to close. So that's pretty exciting. This move opens up what a lot of people thought would be a really dangerous door with a large, about 15% of the total volume becoming unlocked. But it also opens the door to so many more people being interested in staking because they're going to be able to actually know when they can withdraw. And I think that is just a catalyst for more people locking up their.
Yeah, it's an exciting moment for especially DeFi, just crypto in general. So to watch this play out will be interesting. Yeah, there are arguments on both sides. It's releasing 29.4 billion to a 215 billion market cap. So it's a significant number, but how it plays out, nobody knows. Yeah. But there's other exciting news in DeFi. Arbitrum has officially announced their airdrop date. The token will airdrop Thursday, March 23rd.
Yeah, that is massive. So I don't think anybody understands just how big this is. It really is the start of layer twos on Ethereum, like now, and really talking about scaling Ethereum to the next level. Ethereum is now, you're going to be able to have so much cheaper transactions and make it easier and cheaper to build on the security of Ethereum. And so that's huge. Yes, we had the Optimism launch happen a few months back, but the TVL compared between Optimism and Arbitrum is significant.
Very good job of getting people involved. Been very interesting to watch this roll out. And even in comparison to
Yeah, the amount of TVL on Arbitrum is 3 to 5 fold at the very least compared to Optimism when they went to do their first airdrop. And so that's huge. That is so huge for crypto.
yeah, one of the interesting things reading this article was that I guess I just didn't have my head around this, but Arbitrum will be using ETH for its gas transactions.
Yeah.
So the ARB holders, it's strictly a governance token. So I thought that was really interesting and positive for ETH actually as well. And they're also rolling out this Arbitrum Orbit, which is to get layer threes onto Arbitrum, which I thought was interesting too.
Yeah. Arbitrum is really striving to push the ecosystem forward and push the whole vision for ETH forward, because this is what was originally envisioned for ETH, was having layer twos and layer threes built on Ethereum so that you leverage that scale and that interoperability, but you could interact for cheaper, faster, and half the scale that they need to. So super bullish on that. Did you get anything? Did you earn anything in the airdrop?
No, I did not get involved. I didn't have the bandwidth to really get involved. Just
Too bad. I did. I earned 1,125 tokens. And current projections say that's somewhere around $1,500. So
flex it. I'll just say it now. Use caution while claiming your tokens. And anyone out there, scammers frequently use occasions like this to fish people with spoof websites, other schemes. It's an airdrop. There's no rush to claim this, right?
there is a claiming website, but it's arbitrum.foundation. So
But
make
it's not
sure
like
you're
not like a
on.
mint where you have to rush in and grab it. So
No.
just take the time, make sure you're not getting screwed.
I get, just to push this point home, I get tagged on Twitter at least 12 times a day, tagging me in some Arbitrum scam. So
Yeah, take
be
your time.
very careful.
Yeah. There's just no sense in rushing it. But anyway, I'm sure you're all savvy vets out there, especially if you're involved in an airdrop, but still just be careful out there. Speaking of being careful, close up with this story. YouTube influencers sued for promoting FTX. A lawsuit filed Wednesday named a group of social media influencers and claimed they actively promoted FTX to their millions of followers without disclosing the nature of any payments or compensation. Some influencers mentioned, what was it? Erica Kolberg, Ben Armstrong.
So BitBoy, let's be clear. Not if people don't know who Ben Armstrong is, it's YouTuber Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan from the Graham Stephan show. So
I haven't heard of only Ben Armstrong, who I know as Ben Armstrong and BitBoy. I know him that well.
I know the three that I just mentioned there. I don't recognize Erica Kolberg or Tom Nash, but the other three I'm familiar with.
And if you didn't do anything, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to disparage the name. This is just what they're reporting. You're just in a lawsuit. Nothing personal. They're being accused.
They haven't been found guilty.
They're defendants.
It goes along this whole discussion, just like Kim Kardashian and Floyd Mayweather got sued for promoting Ethereum Max. That's what it was. But how liable are social media influencers and YouTube influencers for what they put out based on their sponsorships or endorsement deals? So what's their responsibility and liability there? In the case of Ethereum Max, Floyd Mayweather and Kim Kardashian were found innocent. They didn't have to pay anything. So what we'll see if precedent continues.
And precedent's a good word because it does establish some precedent for YouTubers. So there's some cases and some law when they come.
Yeah.
Once they're finished, what happens. And I know I feel very comfortable here. We take absolutely $0. This is just our own opinions.
Yeah. And I think something's important. I don't think anyone really could have known what was going on the inside of FTX. So I feel at least these people didn't necessarily know that they were being sponsored or promoting like a fraudulent company. So we're completely sponsor free and our opinions are our own. I am glad for that.
Yeah. And anytime we mention a project, we're not endorsing it. It's just our own personal opinion. Because we have mentioned a couple, but yeah, it's really just, we've never received any compensation on this. Yeah, sure. Anyway, on that note, thank you for listening to Decentralized News today. We post to YouTube first, so please consider subscribing to catch the videos as soon as they drop. Our goal is to provide unfiltered content that will help foster genuine discussions to help this entire space grow. Please remember this is not financial advice and we are not financial advisors. This show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research before making any investment decision. Thanks for your support and stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks for listening.